That's not a good way to start the morning. Well, the time has finally come. If you've been watching our previous videos, you know we've been thinking about getting rid of our Teslas for a while. We finally made the first move and we're picking up our new car this Sunday. So I thought I'd take this time and talk about what this car meant, why we're getting rid of it, but more importantly, what we're getting instead, and also talk about our experience by purchasing with Carvana. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now as we haven't completed the order yet, but it's been a terrible experience so far. Let me explain. If you've been following our journey for a while, you know we actually started this channel because I had some issues with my Tesla when I first got it. It was not charging correctly and I couldn't get it to charge past 7% before stopping. After talking with the Tesla dealership, other Tesla enthusiasts, no one could really figure out why the car was doing this. And I stumbled upon it by accident. I found out there was a third-party app that I didn't use. I downloaded it at the recommendation of one of the people at the Tesla dealership or service location. And it turned out it was doing delayed charging for, charge to a certain point and before a certain time. And that was actually preventing my car from doing what it was supposed to do, but no one had encountered that before. And the guy suggested, hey, why don't you make a video or put a post out there somewhere in case other people are having the same issue? And that's the birth of Tommy's Tesla Tech and Travel. So I love technology, we love to travel, and I was a big Tesla advocate. And I love my electric car. I've had zero complaints. Well, I've had a couple complaints, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. But there is really, to me, no downsiding for owning an electric car. But recently, we decided it's time to make a change. And we had literally had this car for almost 4 years on the dot. We picked it up December 24th of 2021. And here we are, January 2nd of 2025. And we're picking up our new car on January 5th. But before we get into all of that, let me talk a little bit about our rise and fall with Tesla. It's not really a rise and fall per se. It's just people change, things change, and nothing is forever. So when I bought the Model 3, it took me about a year to convince my wife to let me actually get it. Because, we are married. It is a partnership. We have to be on the same page. It's just sometimes you have to really convince the other person to be on the same page as you. And we just had our first child. We're getting ready to we just had our second child, actually. She had to be convinced it was going to be a family car because, she is the daughter of a mechanic and she's a very level-headed person. And this is just me, her tech-loving, what's the next great thing coming out husband saying, I think this car makes sense. A little bit behind the scenes. I'm an MBA, and the only thing I've always joked around, the only thing I've ever actually used my degree for was convincing my wife with numbers, statistics, and a presentation that the Model 3 was really the car for us. And we ended up getting it. And I loved it. And we did everything from it, from just being our around the town car, even driving it from Tucson to Orlando and back when we had a 7-year-old and, at the time, 4-year-old and 1-year-old with us. And everything went great. In the early days of the car, I made a few mistakes because I was still learning about the car itself, whereas I was charging with the supercharger quite often and usually to 90 to 95%. Didn't realize at the time how bad that was for the longevity of your battery. So what we started off with 272 miles of range is now about 220 miles of range. So the battery is definitely degraded down over that time frame. But not to the point where we said, oh, this is such an issue, this is such a problem. I mean, we bought the car in 2021, it is now 2024, and we've put about 70,000 miles on it. And it's still been going strong. It's my wife's daily driver. But maybe you remember what I said earlier when I had to convince her to let me buy it. Why is she driving it now? Well, after she started driving it a couple times, she really fell in love with the car, and I decided to get another car. So she took my Model 3 and I purchased a Tesla Model Y. So we were the Tesla family at that point, and we had zero issues. But after time and the way we charged the Model 3 in its beginning, the battery has degraded down quite a bit. And for a long-term car, we didn't do what we were supposed to in the beginning, which drastically affected the long term, which is why we decided to trade it in. And now you ask what car we're getting. We actually decided to get my wife a Mustang Mach-E. And the reason behind it is my wife is the most down-to-earth, level-headed person I've ever had the privilege of knowing. She never, and people say this, but this is 100% accurate with my wife, never ever asked for anything for herself. To get her to do something for herself is honestly sometimes like pulling teeth, which I appreciate that she lets me do things I want to do, like the YouTube channel. I'm a big comic book collector, as you see in our channels. And if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe and follow those adventures. We went to go purchase the Flex, a Ford Flex from my mother, because she wanted something a little bit lower, easier to get in and out of, that can still accommodate our whole family if we need to go somewhere. And as I was finalizing the paperwork on it, I see my wife over there playing with the Mustang Mach-E. And I went over there and said, "Do you like this?" She told me, "I've always wanted a Mustang." I was like, "But it's electric." She goes, "I don't think I can ever go back to gas again. I don't miss pumping gas, and it's so much easier just to go home and plug it in." So at that point, I knew I really won her over. And some other things occurred where we decided maybe it's time to start moving on from Tesla. Again, I'll explain. We're not trying to get political here, but here's what happened. The long story short about it is, I really fell in love with the Rivian the first time I saw it. It was the ideal car I wanted. The reason I decided to go with Tesla is I love the technology. I think they were making all the best advancements in the field. And I just really like the design and the look of it. I mean, it's a luxury car, sports car look, but with future amenities like electric and everything else. But it was never really big enough per se, because even the Model X, which is, the top of the line, which I can never afford, still it was lacking in my opinion. Then when I first saw the Rivian, I said, "Oh my gosh, this is the car for me." But again, that price tag was way over my head. So when they announced the R2, I knew that was the car that I wanted. So I put in my pre-order for it. My wife, we knew she wanted a Mach-E, and we both loved our cars, so we were kind of still on the fence about whether we wanted to actually get rid of them. But some direction of the company, some of the changes in the culture, their policies, and I'm not going to lie, Elon's gotten a little off the edge for me. But I never really judge a brand and its product by the CEO or CFO or anything like that, because those are individuals, they don't necessarily represent the whole brand. But it's just one of those things, even though I am fully aware that shouldn't really influence my overall decision because it's the product, not the representation of the product. I just felt I couldn't keep going forward with my overall love of the vehicle itself, just because we're kind of outgrowing it as a family. That's the best way to say it. But with some of the things going on right now with Elon and the direction of the company, and I think the lackluster innovations. I mean, look how long it took for the Cybertruck to come out. People are still waiting for their roadsters, and now I'm hearing is their robots. Like, let's focus on making the cars better and improving what was currently out there. But I will give credit where credit's due. My absolute favorite thing is the fact that their software updates are free and included. My Model 3 that I bought almost 4 years ago, has the exact same software as my Model Y that's a year old. So credit where credit's due. I don't care if you bought it back in 2016 or bought it presently. All in all, you have an updated vehicle every time there's a brand new software update. So again, credit where credit's due. But with all those things in consideration, it was just really time for us to move on. But moving on, I believe in moving up. But it doesn't take anything away from the current cars. If you love Teslas, I fully support you. It's called Tommy's Tesla Tech and Travel, because I do think there's some of the best and most innovative products out there. I just think there's now other options that better suit our overall needs. And that's kind of the long story short-ish. But now the real reason you guys turned in, let's talk about our experience with Carvana. Guys, it hasn't been good.
Why?
That's a good question. So fortunately, Carvana had the best price, but unfortunately, not the best experience. You see, the whole point in buying with Carvana, it's supposed to be the easiest and smoothest process, and it was anything but. So we found the car relatively quick for the price we wanted, and we actually closed on it December 27th at 6:21 p.m. Why so specific? Very important to the issue we're having. We closed on it, then the weekend happened, Saturday and Sunday, Carvana's closed, so is my bank. So I went on Monday morning to make sure everything was finalized, got the approval, they're getting ready to issue the check, and I got an email from Carvana saying our order has been canceled due to lack of paperwork. Upon further investigation, it was due to not having the financing confirmed, which I'm supposed to have 48 hours, and this was less than 48 business hours. In all honesty, it was less than 24 business hours. And there was a holiday this week too for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, so it was really hard to get a hold of somebody. By the time I got everything straightened out, we lost our delivery time, which was supposed to be on Sunday at our home, which we both worked all weekend, and we had to make arrangements to make that time available for delivery. Now I have to drive to Phoenix, which is 100 miles away, and back when I have to work that morning and my wife has to work that evening. And this is the only time frame that I can work for it. And unfortunately, they weren't willing to make any changes, although they did admit fault. And they put in a request for us to be compensated for our time and everything. But I just got news on that as we were walking in here. And when I say the experience was not the best, it basically breaks down to this. Because after I got that email saying that our deal had fallen through as a result of the financing thing, which well within the time frame, in fact, I technically had 2 more days when you look at the actual statement and agreement. I go to try to speak to somebody that's now after the holiday, and it tells me they're closed, but an advocate will be reaching out to me shortly. About 10 minutes later, I got a text message from Sebastian. Important to the story, Sebastian's not a real person, which I didn't know for 1 hour. You see, as I got it going with the conversation via text message, because apparently that's the only way you can speak to somebody, Sebastian was not answering all my questions, but was coming off as it's supposed to be a real person. And I said, hey, it's been less than 24 business hours. We have the financing. It's on the purchase agreement. And then Sebastian responded back with something akin to, oh, we cannot get you the purchase agreement until your financing is in order. No, I have the purchase agreement. That's literally what I just took to my bank to complete the whole transaction. Well, after an hour and a half of going back and forth and then finding out it for sure was a bot, I ended up talking to someone the next day via text message that was a real person. They even said, yes, this is a real person. And this is where my frustration really began, because I understand dealing with the bot didn't work out. Sometimes the system just messes up because it's all automated. But this person that I'm now actually speaking with in real time via text message told me that there's nothing they can do about the delivery because there's deadlines they have to meet and we missed it. And I never completed my confirmation of payment by the January 3rd deadline. I want you to keep in mind, this text messaging conversation is happening in real time, is happening January the 2nd, a day before the deadline he is discussing. So that's why I'm like, what deadline did I miss? Like, everything's uploaded, everything's good, like why? And it was you that agreed to January 5th for delivery and then said, oh, you missed a deadline that I had not even missed yet. He said he was gonna put in a request for compensation for me, what do they call it, a goodwill ticket. But we just kept going back and forth. And he finally was just like, no, you're gonna have to pick it up at the dealership. I said, fine, where is it? And he gave me 3 different addresses for all intents and purposes. So I was getting more and more frustrated. And it was just talking to another brick wall robot. And then finally I was like, this is not going anywhere. We're talking in circles. And he goes, well, you have to speak with a Carvana advocate if you want to get anything changed. And that's what stopped me in my tracks again. The whole message I started off this all with when I spoke to the robot officially first, Sebastian, was we're going to transfer you to a Carvana advocate. So now the robot I talked to and the person I've been talking to now for another couple hours was also not an advocate. So who am I supposed to talk to? But at this point, I was just frustrated. I just wanted to get the car done, and I was going to just talk to you guys about my Carvana experience. And then I got a phone call the next day. And then the very next day, we get another phone call. This phone call is actually from a real person who I get to speak to in real time, not text with back and forth. And they call to say, congratulations, that all of your financing and everything went through. We can't wait for you to pick up your new car. Cool. And this is on January 3rd, the actual deadline for me to get my paperwork in by, let alone already have it approved by. And I tell her, here's a situation. And we explain it to her, and we go over it in way more detail than I'm going over it with you folks here. And her first reaction is, oh my gosh, I am so sorry that you went through that. That 100% should not have happened that way. Let me see what I can do, and I'm gonna put in a ticket for you for our goodwill funding for situations like this. And that goodwill is basically compensate us as the consumer when it's 100% their fault and issue, which she admitted to several times during the course of our conversation. Especially if she looked at the notes in the file and just the timeline of everything happening. So she put it in, we had a great talk. But, I told her how frustrated I was, where this is supposed to be simple. I completed it Friday night. By Monday morning, when it's actually the day for me to get things done, it tells me we can't. Then now we can't get the delivery, which is what we've made our whole schedule around. And now we got to drive 100 miles to Phoenix and 100 miles back, all between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. essentially. So it's a 4-hour window there. It's about an hour and a half drive either way, and that gives us about half an hour to 40 minutes to complete the whole transaction and test drive and everything while we're there. Because my wife has to be at work at 3 o'clock, and I originally was taking the whole day off, but now I'm going in at 6 a.m. just to get some stuff done. But that's neither here nor there. So she put in the ticket, we had a great conversation. I can actually felt that she was empathetic to the situation, and I'm not one to complain about stuff like that. Because if you ever worked in customer-facing services or client-facing services, things happen. And for someone like me, it goes a long way when not only do you admit fault, but you do everything in your power to make it right for the consumer that you're working with. Because they're the ones at the end of the day that's taking care of your business. So she put it in, fine, we're all set and go. This is all happening January 3rd, the actual date of when my finances and all the paperwork was due. And today, I said it earlier, I just got an email, and that email says, we are unable to accommodate or whatever. You'll see it right here. So that's one more thing I gotta talk to him about when I'm there. So this is my long-winded way of saying, Carvana sometimes seems like such an easy process. We went in there with our pre-approved financing through our lender. We went there knowing the exact car we want. We completed the whole transaction in like 20 minutes as far as like reserving the car. But when it came to the actual behind the scenes, because of the lack of human involvement and honestly lack of true empathy for their company making the mistake, it's definitely put us at a true inconvenience. Of course, before y'all start hitting the dislike button and making fun of me, I'm fully aware, and I've used this term many times on our channel, it's 100% first world problem. Oh no, we can't get our unnecessary electric vehicle the way we wanted to. But the point is, that's what we agreed upon. And then I followed all the rules and the rules of engagement for the transaction and process, only to be the one that's kind of made to be inconvenienced and to make things harder. Because what should have been a drop off, sign the paperwork, here's the keys to our Model 3, have a great day, is now turned into, okay, I'm home from work, let's go, get in the car, drive up there, do everything we need to do, drop the car off, drive back, and presumably charge on the way back, because that's gonna be like another 20 to 30 minutes right there, and get home and immediately take her to work, and then spend the rest of the day getting to know the new car. It's just really frustrating when we did this because of the ease of the transaction and we got anything but. And there are some dealerships in Phoenix and in Tucson that had cars in a similar price range, but Carvana offered us the best trade-in value for my car, so we went with them. In the future, I think I'm willing to pay that human tax and maybe take a little less on my trade-in to go actually deal with the person I can speak to face-to-face. Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to watch. I hope that was somewhat informative. If you've been thinking about using Carvana, it's completely up to you. Just know my experience selling my cars in the past, Carvana was great. Purchasing a car, I don't think I'll ever do that again. Hopefully we somehow figure out a way to make this right when we see them. I'll follow up with you guys when we get the new car, but thanks for taking a ride with us. Let's take another ride again soon. Thanks for watching Tommy's, I guess, Ford Mach-E Tech and Travel. Bye-bye, everybody.